me reintroduce everybody. My name is Ian Furness, and I'm the host on the Kraken Hockey Network for all of our local television broadcasts, somewhere between 70 and 75 a year. Can't wait for next season, our second year of the Kraken Hockey Network, and really happy to be joined today by Jason Botterill, the new GM for your Seattle Kraken. This is the first opportunity we have had to sit down and really kind of get to know you a little bit.
Yep.
Get to know, have the fans get to know you. It's really kind of fun because this is, I know for guys like you, this is the time of the season you love, right? This is a team building. They've got all the amateur scouts in town. You had the pro scouts last week, and we'll kind of go through some of the questions. Someone may ask a question about the coaching search, maybe along the way. Before we get to that, first of all, welcome to Seattle. How's the first month been?
It's been exciting. It's been a lot of fun and stuff for sure. Certainly very honored about being the second general manager of the Seattle Kraken. But no, got named GM, immediately went down to Dallas. The World Under-18 Championships were going on in Dallas, so an opportunity to see some of the players that we're certainly going to draft next year or next month. Came back to Seattle. We had our pro scouting meetings, went through that whole process, putting our list together for possible free agents in the start of July, talking to our scouts about possible trade candidates on different teams. Had about a week off, and then this week we had our amateur scouts in. And obviously we have amateur scouts all over the world, across North America, Europe. We have one in Sweden, or we have three in Sweden, one in Finland, one in Russia. They have been working nonstop over the last 8 or 9 months, evaluating 17-year-old players out there, and got all that knowledge, bringing it in here to Seattle, having meetings throughout the week. And it's a difficult process, but we're trying to sort of get in our draft list together here. A lot of discussions, a little heated discussions once in a while, because our scouts are passionate about their own players. But we sort of have a list in line here by the end of the week. And in a week from now, we go to the Combine in Buffalo, have more interviews with the prospects, and do a little physical testing there, and all trying to build up for the draft at the end of June and start a free agency on July 1.
All right. And again, if you're just joining us, welcome in. It's just after 5 o'clock. Again, my name is Ian Furness from the Kraken Hockey Network. Jason Botterill, your new GM for the Kraken. If you have a question, hit the Q&A tab, hit the Q&A button, and we'll get to some of those as the next 45 minutes or so goes along. Okay, you just gave us like a million things to talk about, so let's go through those. I want to start. You went down to Dallas.
Yep.
Did you find your way to Coachella Valley? I waited for my invite. I never got it from you.
I stopped in Coachella Valley throughout the year, but did not stop in the playoffs. But got to see them play up in Abbotsford for Game 3 this year. Was very proud of Derek Laxall and our group down there in Coachella Valley. We had an extremely young team down there this year. To get to the second round, I thought was an outstanding job, and they really got the most of the group down there. We're a very young group. You just never know how they're going to materialize throughout the year. I thought there was constant development. And then you obviously saw it a little bit up here in Seattle with a player like Yanni Newman coming up and having success, Jacob Melanson getting his first National Hockey League game, Billy Ottavena getting his first National Hockey League game, Nicholas Coco getting his first National Hockey League game. So getting those milestones, they're proud moments for our organization, right? Our amateur scouts are so proud of selecting these kids. Then you have our development staff working so hard at them, and our staff down in Coachella Valley did a great job of developing our young players.
Maybe that's a good place to talk about Coachella just for a second, because the last couple of years they go to the Calder Cup Finals.
Yep.
They have these great runs, and I think people say, oh, they got knocked out in the second round this season. Yep. But it's a different deal. Maybe explain what the American Hockey League is all about, because there's different types of teams. I worked in the American Hockey League. It's a great league. It's a ton of fun league. But there are different teams. There are younger teams. There are veteran teams. There's teams with a bunch of, if you want to call them, like use a baseball term, quad A guys, right, that are kind of up and down all the time. But this was truly your prospect. Really, kind of the first year, it was mostly Kraken prospects, right?
Yeah, you look at the first couple of years, it was great for a Shane Wright or a Riker Evans to get that opportunity to go to a Calder Cup Finals. But we had a very veteran-laden team, players who are sort of in their late 20s, early 30s, sort of running that team. You look at it this year, I think we had the third youngest forward group in the American Hockey League. There are players that are sort of stepping in, Furcus or a Goyette, Molgard that came over at the end of the year, Yanni Newman. These are young players who are stepping into our organization and experiencing pro hockey, and it's a huge step. It's a huge step from junior or college hockey to make it to the American Hockey League, and for those players, not just to survive, but to really be go-to players on the team, help them win hockey games, get them to the playoffs, find a way to get through a round of the playoffs, was a huge accomplishment. And then for them to go, the Abbotsford series, it's disappointing you lose the second round, but some of the games up there were some of the most physical, tight checking games I've seen in the American Hockey League over the last 5 or 6 years. and for our young players to play in that environment and do well, great experience for them.
When you're, like fans, we can all go and look at websites and stat sheets and things like that, right?
Yep.
And you can go look and see. When we look and see, especially young guys, right? And we look at what's Furcus doing, what are his point totals. Do you ever look at point totals as a GM, or do you look at just the game tapes and the film, talk to the coaches? Like what, even for fans, what should they do? Should they watch the highlights online? What do you do?
Well, certainly you always like to see your prospects score goals. Who doesn't want to score goals and have success from that perspective?
Right.
But when a player comes into our organization, Jeff Tambellini, our director of player development, does a great job of sort of setting up foundation keys. These are the things that our players need to work on, and for them to have a successful game, that should be part of it. And it doesn't always equate to goals. At the end of the day, goals, assists, it's sometimes it's beyond your controllables sometimes.
Right.
What you can control is how well you do if you're a centerman on the faceoffs, if you're a D-man, how many times you box out well or win your one-on-one battles. If you're a winger, keeping your feet going through the neutral zone, working on your wall play to get pucks out of the zone. These foundation keys are what Jeff sort of sets up with players on these are the steps that are going to help you get to the National Hockey League, because it's not just about scoring goals. And for some of these players coming from junior where it's all about scoring, it takes an adjustment for them to get to the American Hockey League and to work on their B game, their other elements of just scoring. And that's what we're looking for when we're evaluating our players. And you look at a player like Jacob Melanson, played his first National Hockey League game this year. Coming out of the Quebec Junior League, he scored 50 goals. Mm-hmm. But he's never going to be a 50-goal scorer in the National Hockey League. But he's learned to be a great physical player out there, finishing his checks on the forecheck, getting into the front net. These are attributes the Kraken need in our organization up in our National Hockey League team. So this is his path to get to the National Hockey League. And I think Jeff and his staff with Derek Laxdell, we plan out a good path for these young kids to take a step to get to the National Hockey League.
Jeff Tambellini, by the way, the Director of Player Development, he's kind of the guy behind the scenes. One of many behind the scenes, right, that we're going to talk about that does such a great job. Let's get a couple questions in from the fans.
Certainly.
So let me start first. Glenn Kempf, and by the way, I'm going to do my very best to get the name pronunciations correctly. I apologize in advance if I don't get someone's name correctly. My name is Ian Furness, so Ian Furness, just call me that later on, and we'll call it even, all right? Glenn says, and also when you're sending a question in, and the Q&A, and we're going to get some of those others up here. Tell us where you sit. You're a season ticket member. We want to know where you sit. We can kind of identify you a little bit more. Glenn says, we've seen throughout the playoffs, there's a difference between playoff teams and Stanley Cup contenders. What are the factors that go into creating a team like Florida that can be a perennial Stanley Cup contender?
Well, I think you just look at the success in the National Hockey League right now, it changes. There's different realms. You look at a team like Florida, I think their management group has did a great job of, over a couple different general managers, of building to the draft and then making some effective trades, whether it's for a Sam Bennett or a Sam Reinhart. Obviously this year at the trade deadline is Seth Jones. Yep. So they've done a nice combination of just free agents coming to their organization, building through the draft, and making key trades. The style of play, I think, is very different. Like you look at the success of a Tampa Bay Lightning offense, attacking. I think Florida brings a little bit more grit from that standpoint, a heaviness throughout especially their top 9, even their top 12 forwards. I think it just goes to show you there's different ways to win in the National Hockey League. I was part of 3 Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh. We built those teams off of speed. I think what you saw with the Kraken in year 2 when we had success getting to Game 7 of the second round, it was an attacking style of play. It was utilizing our speed. We were certainly good in our D zone. We took care of our D zone. But if you want to talk about a Kraken identity, it was about speed and forecheck, and that's something that we have to get to. But to me, I'm fascinated watching the playoffs. I think there's just you feel it throughout the year. The differences between winning and losing is so small. Then you get to the playoffs, and to me, some of the swings it's so fun to watch as a fan. I especially look at the Oilers versus Kings first round series, and LA goes up 2-0 in that series. Mm-hmm. They have a chance in Game 4 to go up 3-1, but Edmonton finds a way to come back and ends up winning winning the series in 6 games. The difference between winning and losing is such a small difference right there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right, let's get another one. This is from Erica Suma or Suma. We'll go with Suma. Section 20, row D, seats 5 and 6. And Erica, thanks so much for being a season ticket member. We love that. Which young players would you consider a core group to build around?
Well, I think the ones that just jump out at you right away is just obviously Matty Beniers, and
It's weird to think he's still young. It feels like he's been here for a long time, right?
Without a doubt. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to show. Can you show patience with Matty? But I'd probably say Matty Beniers, Shane Wright. We're excited about Riker Evans moving forward, and then we're looking from a young player to find more players to add to that group as we go through. And what excites us is that we're not just sort of relying on one player. We think a player, maybe it's Yanni Newman, maybe it's an Oscar Mogard who's playing over at the World Championships right now for Denmark.
Can we talk about what happened today in that game?
Oh, we don't want to talk about Canada losing. That was heartbreaking. Right. But it was.
But Oscar, the silver. Here's the bad news.
Yep.
A couple Kraken players playing for Team Canada.
Yep. And Riker Evans and Mr. Montour.
Yeah. But you have a young guy playing for Denmark in one of the biggest upsets ever in World Championships. 100. What a great experience for him.
And for it to happen in Denmark too, they'll be partying for a long time there and stuff for sure. But it's a huge accomplishment for that country without a doubt. And it's disappointing being a proud Canadian. Yeah. But it's great for Oscar and it's great for Denmark. Now here, Mr. Mogard now gets an opportunity to play in a semifinal and either a gold medal or bronze medal game at the World Championships. Great experience for him. And you take a step back. He's playing over in the SHL, the Swedish Elite League this year, comes over to Coachella Valley at the end of the year to get the experience, then goes to World Championships. These are great things for his development because, we've talked a lot about in our organization. We certainly want to develop NHL players, but we also want to develop players who have won, who have had championships and stuff from that perspective. But to get back to the original question about younger players, we're still adding that to our mix. We feel we have a very good balance right now of veteran players, whether it's our captain Jordan Eberle or Jaden Schwartz that we got in the expansion draft, and then obviously stepping up in free agency last year, adding a player like Montour or Stevenson to our mix. We feel we have a good mix of veteran and youngs, but we want to continue to add younger players to that mix in and around Matty's age. And we're going to get a very good player again at number 8 this year. We're ecstatic about the development of a Berkeley Captain this year. So we feel we're adding pieces to that young group moving forward.
All right, we reset everything because we're about 10 minutes into this. Welcome in. If you're just joining us here on the Zoom call as a season ticket holder for your Seattle Kraken, my name is Ian Furness with the Kraken Hockey Network. Excited about year 2 on the Kraken Hockey Network, our in-house network, which we had so much fun with this season. Jason Botterill is the new GM here. Ron Francis moving up to that president's chair. Is this chair bigger, that president's chair? Is it bigger? What does it look like?
Well, to be honest, I took over his office. He gave me his office, so it worked out well from my perspective, for sure.
Very good. And we're taking your questions as well. Go to the Q&A tab. Let us know where you sit as well. We want to know where you're sitting at as a season ticket member. We'll take a bunch of those as well. Let me get a couple more in. There's an elephant in the room, and there's a missing gap in the hockey operations, but we'll get to that job here in just a couple seconds. But let me get to this. This is Paul Whitaker from Section 114. We know you have an awesome analytics department. Can you talk about what metrics you look at and which player or players excel at the metrics you prioritize?
Well, what I would say is what I prioritize is all-around players. And then what I like about Alex Mandricki and what her staff does is a great job of giving us a number that equates to so much that goes into it. We talk a lot about what makes a good player at the National Hockey League, what makes a successful player. And I think what's difficult from an analytics standpoint, people sometimes focus in on one metric and it doesn't encompass everything. Now, I think when we're building lines, when we're working to see who should play with each other on the ice, I think there's a great opportunity to see through the data, hey, well, this combination works fairly well together. But I also think just you look at the style of our team, obviously this year we took a step back from a defensive standpoint, spent way too much time in our own zone. That's something we're certainly going to have to change moving forward. I think if you look at it we've done a nice job of ozone possession time, but we have to find a better way of getting to the house right in front of the net. And that's something that we've sort of struggled at over the last couple of years from that standpoint. So bringing in players with a little bit more size like a Kako or a Yanni Newman, I think will certainly help out, but I think it just needs to continue to be an entire emphasis of getting to the net, being stronger in front of the net there from that standpoint. But what I love from our staff right now, our analytics department, whether it's amateur players, whether it's pro players, they give us one sort of number that incorporates it all, and they do a great job of making our lives a lot easier from that perspective.
I think of the movie Moneyball, baseball movie, and there's Jonah Hill sitting there and who's this guy? And I think because of that, sometimes there's analytics sometimes are taboo for some old school guys. And I know for me this year I learned so much about it from the great Allison Lucan and watching this. But I think isn't it important to point out it's not just Alex Mandricki and her staff do a phenomenal job. and you use that data, you use eye tests. How does the evaluation of players, both here in the NHL and the American Hockey League, or when you're watching your guys that you've drafted, if they're in college still, or if they're in the Dub or the Q or the O or whatever playing in Europe, what's the balance between eye test as a former player and what the coaches see, scouts see, and what some of the numbers say?
Well, at the end of the day, it all goes in together, right? And you just look at how you use it in so many different ways, and you see the collaboration we have right now on the amateur side between our amateur scouts and our R&D department talking about different players. And hey, our R&D department might bring up a player in the USHL who's creating a lot of opportunities, and from their numbers looks very good. Hey, our scouts, please go and highlight this player. Check it out from that perspective. And then there's communication on, hey, what they like about the player, what they don't like about a player. Our player development staff, Jeff Tambolina, they utilize it too. Sometimes our players will go, maybe a skilled player like a Berkeley Cat, and not getting the points that he normally gets a little frustrated by that, right? You can use analytics on, hey, look how much you're still creating from that standpoint. Look what you're doing from a defensive perspective. That's great to see. It can give them more feedback and confidence from that standpoint to make sure that just because, hey, the puck's not going into the net, you're still getting to different areas. Or if you're struggling, maybe Berkeley's struggling a little bit, but, well, hey, look, we're seeing that your shots are coming from outside a little bit more versus getting to the paint. You've got to find a way to get there to the paint. And what I love about our sort of group right now and sort of behind the scenes is just the collaboration between these departments. Even in putting a number on a player, our R&D department talk a lot about our amateur scouts, like, well, which tournaments, what leagues do you guys value more than others? And that then goes into their equation and their before they put out that final number and stuff. So it's always an evolution of how we're changing the numbers a little bit. We're changing our value, and that communication, I think, certainly makes us for a strong organization. All
right, we're 15 minutes in. Great questions coming in. Keep firing those questions in the Q&A tab button. I'm Ian Furness, Jason Botterill. Welcome in if you're just joining us, just getting off work, jumping on the Zoom. We appreciate you doing this. We've got another half hour or so left to go. All right, this is exclusive. This is an exclusive thing for our season ticket members, right? They're all sitting here. They're all waiting. They want to know, who's the head coach? Go ahead. No one, it's just our little group here. Who is it?
Yep. We're still in the process right now, but I trust you. We will find the right guy. We will find the right guy to be our leader down there for sure.
There's so much talk, with coaching changes and the rumor mill. I think the NHL is probably one of the greatest rumor mill leagues in the world. Like it feels, it just kind of, there's always numbers, things are flying out there. We'll ask you, like, how far along in the process are you? Have you gotten to the point where you have actually offered a job to anybody? Where are we in that regard?
No, I think it's very similar to say you get to a trade deadline, right? Or a start of free agency where players are going to go. You go back to trade deadline, I think probably, 5% of all rumors are actually true. It's difficult from that standpoint. But especially this year, if you look at, there were some candidates out there that I have ties from my previous stops, whether it was in Pittsburgh or Buffalo. So you sometimes have your name's associated with that. But no, we have not offered the job to anybody at all yet. We feel very comfortable with our process. It's actually a really enjoyable process. It certainly takes a lot of time, and it's a challenge with scouting meetings going on and still amateur games still going on out there. But very similar to the National Hockey League, when you watch a game in the National Hockey League, I'm blown away by the skill and the talent that's out there. It's the same thing. You go through an interview process, you are blown away about how many talented coaches there are out there, and just their different viewpoints of our team, what they would do, how they would, their style of play, their ideas. It's very educational from our standpoint, and you love those conversations. And part of it too is the one-on-one interactions that you have with these candidates, but it's also trying to find out more information from them, like background checks, talking with different players, talking with different staff members. At the end of the day, a great resource we have here is that we are still an expansion team, right? So we brought in a lot of different people from different organizations. Dave Basidio, our director of pro scouting, came from Anaheim. Myself came from Buffalo, Pittsburgh. Robert Cron came from Carolina. Troy Bodie came from Toronto. Having all these different people come into the organization, they have resources. They have touch points with some of these coaches candidates. And so we've utilized our staff a lot and trying to get information on different candidates. And we've enjoyed the conversations. We've certainly done a lot of different interviews and feel like we're narrowing the process here. But we're very excited about naming the new head coach here very soon.
Admittedly, I'm biased because I work here and grew up in Seattle and grew up a Seattle fan of sports, and so I think this is a great job. Like, and you always kind of hear You look around the NHL and you look around any pro sport. It doesn't matter if it's Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, PWHL, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yep.
There's some jobs are better than others. This job, because since day one, the building's been sold out. There's the folks listening right now, watching us right now, you're part of the 17,000 people that are there every single night. I go back this year, you know, and Jason, you guys are so uber focused on hockey, and I get that.
Yep.
I remember just doing our game on the KHN. I think it was our last game of the year on the Kraken Hockey Network, and it was opening night for the Mariners, and opening night in baseball, and it was also Sweet 16 weekend for NCAA basketball. And I thought, well, this will be the night that we kind of see a lot more empty seats. I remember walking across the catwalk in the press box, looking down, place is still packed. I bring that up for this reason, because of the fan base here early on, the support that this team gets in the community, the support the fans give them. That place is as loud as any building. You played in a lot of buildings. You coached or being a GM around the league. This place is nuts. I think that plus the young talent that you have, cap space, all the stuff we'll get into in a second, this has to be I mean, what do you hear from people around the league?
No, it's something that we're very proud of and stuff for sure. But there's a lot of excitement and people want to come here and want to be a part of it and stuff. And I think it's, excuse me, it's what Ron's created from the start here of showing respect, treating players the right way. We have the resources at disposal, whether it's KCI here where we practice, absolutely beautiful facility from that standpoint. You look at the game down at CPA, everyone talks about it all the time, how confined it is, how tight it is in there, and just the atmosphere there is. And, look, we haven't been around for a long time, but we have some pretty impressive moments, right? From game one to Jordan Eberle's goal in overtime to, the Winter Classic. Like, it's a lot of excitement. I think there's always a lag effect with players in the National Hockey League, but word is getting out of how we treat players, how great of an environment it is around here. And I think you saw that last year where we had free agents choosing us, wanting to be part. At the end of the day, Brendan Montour, coming off the Stanley Cup, could have gone a lot of different directions. He wanted to come and be a part of it here and continue to add here. And I think when coaches are sort of looking at it, they see that the combination of veteran talent and younger players, and hey, this is not an opportunity where maybe they're going to have success for a year or two. Like, it's going to be something that can be sustained long term. And from my standpoint, I'm very proud of our amateur scouting staff, our pro scouting staff, our development staff, what we have created in Coachella Valley. And it's fun to get into these discussions and see the rest of the league seeing that. And now we have to continue to build on that and have success at the National Hockey League level.
Yeah, desirable location for a coach, whoever that ends up being, for all the reasons we talked about and you mentioned. Desirable location as well, certainly for a player. We saw that with Chandler Stevenson and Brendan Montour. I mean, when Stanley Cup champions make a decision to come here, that says quite a bit as well, and then and everything else. All right, let's get a couple other in. All right, let's get to this one because this is Dee's doing a great job over here for us, and she's probably like, okay, enough of Berkeley Catton questions. So let's get to Berkeley. I heard of him. He's supposed to be good at hockey, I think. Berkeley Catton, Spokane Chiefs, had a remarkable year with the Chiefs in the regular season. And then all he did is drop 42 points, I think, in 20 playoff games on the way to the Western Hockey League Championship Series. Medicine Hat just won that series, but he took them all the way there. Great team in Spokane, coached by Brad Lauer, who's a former NHL guy, which is probably great for him. This is, I know Brad well, he's probably like, this is what you got to do along the way. But where do you see Berkeley Catton fitting in next year?
Well, no, we're very proud of what Berkeley accomplished this year. And, obviously there was an on-ice product of the production, which was outstanding. And then you're just so proud of how he took his game up come playoff time. We talked about it earlier that we're not only trying to develop players for the National Hockey League, we're trying to develop winners. And, the success of Coachella Valley the last couple of years, same thing with Berkeley. Getting to a conference or a league final, amazing accomplishment and stuff from that perspective. What we also just love about it is just not him sort of coasting around out there getting points. He worked very closely with Jeff Tamlin again, working on building his lower body strength, adding a little bit more speed to his game. And that not only has given him more success in Spokane, but it's also a situation, I think, setting him up more for September, October. And look, it's going to be a big jump for a young player to go from junior to the National Hockey League, especially at age 19. But we're going to try to do everything with Berkeley on making sure he has a strong offseason, continues to add strength, continues to push it, because his offensive creativity, his vision out there, it's something that any NHL team would love to have. So we're not guaranteeing him anything, but we'll certainly give him the opportunity to make our team out of training camp, and we're excited to see how he handles it.
Ron had mentioned, I think right after the trade deadline, and we had him in studio for the Kraken Hockey Network, that he sees him here at the start of the season, and it's kind of the hard thing, right, for an organization, because he'll be considered, what, a 19-year-old?
Yep.
And for those who don't know, unless you have a special exemption, he either has to play in the NHL or he has to go back to juniors.
Correct.
He can't play in the American Hockey League. Now, you can kind of send him down for conditioning assignment. World Juniors comes into play right in December, so there's a lot of ways to do it. But he feels like a guy that's done what he needs to do in the WHL, so I'm assuming you're hoping he's here.
And our fans will remember that happened after the year we drafted Shane Wright, right? Like, he started the year with us. He could not go down to Coachella Valley. He went down there for a few games. Then he went to World Juniors. Then we ultimately felt it was best for his development in year 2 for our organization to go back to junior. So he went back to junior. Whereas our third year, he was able to play in Coachella Valley for the entire year, which was great to see. So there's always that balance. Obviously, with an uber talented player such as Berkeley, you want to make sure that he's just not surviving the National Hockey League. He's on one of the power play units. He's getting an opportunity to get enough ice time. You don't want that to stunt his development. So there's always a balancing effort there. But no, we've challenged our development staff to try to get Berkeley ready. And the great thing with Berkeley is, like, he's a talented player, great kid off the ice, but he takes that information that we're giving him and he's applying it to his game. And that's where I think you see a lot of success. You saw that with Yanni Newman this year. He comes over, yes, he has the big shot, and he gets a lot of attention for his goals. But, like, what he did with moving his feet more in the forecheck, his wall play in the D zone, like, those little elements gained him a lot more trust at the American Hockey League that eventually allowed him to get to the National Hockey League. And because he did those things in the American Hockey League, when he got to the National Hockey League, he did them well. And so when these kids implement these things that you're talking about, it's a proud moment for our entire organization.
Let's talk about Yanni for a second. He came in here and looked never out of place. First shift he ever had at Climate Pledge Arena, had a huge hit, scores a goal later in the game, and never looked like he was a guy that was a young kid getting pushed around. He played physical. He went after the other EP up in Vancouver and said, "You and me." Like, we all saw that. I talked to Jeff Tambellini. He's like, I couldn't believe it. Like he was never, ever afraid, never, ever backing down. And the big shots there, but all the other elements of his game seem to be there as well. He went back down to Coachella, goes through the playoffs. So now you've seen that total body of work. What can we expect from Yanni Newman next year?
Well, Yanni, we're so excited about the entire year, right? Here's a young kid coming over from Finland. You don't know how he's going to adapt to the culture. You don't know how things are going. We didn't even know if he was going to spend the whole year over here or not. But instead of just surviving, he excels. And as we've discussed already, he continues to score goals, but also continue with his game. I was blown away by his confidence when he got up to the National Hockey League, which was great to see. But it was also good to see how our culture in our locker room allowed him to come in and having a little bit of a, whatever you want to call it, Finnish mafia or a little brotherhood. Like, look, it's great. Tolvi helped out a lot of for Capo when he came over. And then Kako helps out Yanni when he comes up and stuff. So having that interaction, that little friendship, it certainly helps out a lot, and just making our players feel comfortable within the locker room. But no, it was great to see Yanni, have the excitement of scoring the goal. You see his parents in the crowd, the emotion that it is. Just think of the hours that they've spent working at him to get to that point. You're very proud and you're very excited for their entire family. Now, the next challenge here now, the adrenaline's always flowing in that first call-up. You're so excited to be in the National Hockey League. The next challenge is next year to do that over 82 games. And it's just something we're going to continue to work on, Yanni, being stronger, being able to handle that. Also, too, when you start scoring a couple goals, you get your name circled on the blackboard of the opposition. They key on you a little bit more for that. So it's going to be a challenge for Yanni to keep building from that standpoint. But no, we love his shot. We love his hockey sense. We love his size. We felt when we added both Kako and also Yanni to our top six, it certainly changed our dynamic with our forward group. And we talked about getting to the net, creating more chances out there. I think those two guys can certainly do that for our group there. And we're very excited about where his game might go over the next couple of years.
So whether it be Berkeley Catton or whether it be Yanni Newman or any of the young guys down in Coachella, any of the young guys that are playing juniors or whatever it might be, off-season's huge, which brings us to a great question here. This is from Rachel Blaine, section 102. How does a team work with players in development over the summer? Do the players get homework from the teams of things to work on? Are they on their own, handle their training? How does that work? And it's probably not just the young guys, but certainly the veterans as well. Jordan Eberle probably doesn't need a lot, I'm guessing. James Schwartz probably doesn't need a lot. Brandon Montour, those guys. But especially the young guys that you are hoping to take that next step. And the next step starts today and goes through September. So what goes on?
Well, to be honest, I'll push back on you. They all need it, right? And
Right.
it's just different. Like Jordan Eberle coming off a tough injury this year, he realizes the importance of having a great offseason to continue to play. And obviously he's getting up in age a little bit, but you're not seeing a drop-off because of his dedication to his off-season training. Brandon Montour is a late developing player, and it doesn't matter what age is, he's continuing to develop his game each year from that perspective. I was around the best player in the world for the longest time in Sidney Crosby. He still picks up each summer, working on his back end, working on his face-off, working on puck protection. Each year he sort of adds a different dynamic to that bit. So it's always important for us to give our players certain elements to really work on in the summer.
What about strength and conditioning?
Strength and conditioning, we will give them a plan, but they also usually all have their own strength and conditioning coaches back home. So then it's a situation where our strength and conditioning coaches work with them, making sure that we're on the same bullet point, making sure we're trying to focus on the same goals from that aspect. We also have some of our players stay here in Seattle working with our own staff right here. So it's a good environment and stuff, and it is a situation where we've seen great leaps and bounds. You look at a young player like Ryan Winterton, his first training camp in here, very skinny. He knocked off a lot of pucks, but it's a situation where he's added 20, 25 pounds to his physique over the last couple of years, and that's the difference between making him up to a National Hockey League player. Shane Wright last year had a short summer because the Coachella Valley went to the Calder Cup Finals. Even under 6 weeks of having, under 6-7 weeks in off season, he put on another 10 pounds, and it looked like he could handle a lot more speed and a lot more strength in the one-on-one battles. So you see big improvements in young players, and that just gets you that much more excited about their futures.
Jason, you mentioned the guys staying in Seattle. How many guys stay here, and how unique is that? I mean, you were in Buffalo, you're in Pittsburgh, and a lot of these guys go home, especially north of the border. They got a cabin on a lake in Penticton or wherever it might be, and they're doing their thing. But you have ice here all the time at KCI. You've got this great locker room facility, the strength staff, training staff, everybody's here. So how many guys do stay here, and how unique is that?
Well, it changes throughout the year and stuff, but in the off season. But it's something that, especially come August, a lot of people our players are back in here. And what we want to try and accomplish is having some of our vets back in here and bringing in some of our younger players, right? Whether, that's a Riker Evans, whether that's a Jugnoth, one of our younger players. We want them in and around here, this environment, whether that's a Berkeley Catton. So it's something to do. We have all these beautiful facilities at our disposal, and as I talked about the lag effect, people are starting to realize wow, the summers are beautiful around here. And last year Grubauer spent most of the summer. What does he then tell them? How amazing the summers were from that perspective. So look, we're cognizant that they want to get home, see their friends, see their families. And a lot of them, if they have a great workout environment there, we feel comfortable with that. But they also understand a little bit of the beauty of Seattle, beauty of this area, coming back a little bit earlier and sort of fostering a little bit more of a team culture, which is certainly what we're trying to develop.
All right, if you're just joining us again, Ian Furness, Jason Botterill, welcome in. We've got about 15 minutes or so left to go. We're having this great conversation with all our season ticket members, and it's just awesome to have everybody join us. And I think we're going to do this again. I don't know with you necessarily. Probably with the coach down the road. We'll make him do it.
Sounds good.
Let him know, whenever you hire him. We'll do this again. If you have a question, the Q&A tab, tell us where you sit as well. We want to know where you sit. This is from Tom Smith, the WAFED Club, 13. How do you analyze and address ebb and flow of playing intensity? I've seen more tremendous performances, win or lose, from the team, and then flat performances. How do you manage that over 82 games? That's probably a good way to look at it. I think one of the things that Ron talked about when the coaching change was made is that that's the good way, ebb and flow. 0-12 in back-to-backs,
100%.
and so but 82 games, a long schedule. So how do you manage that?
And it's the struggle about being in the West, right? My previous stops, I was always out east. You always hear the Western teams complain about travel.
Right.
Is it really that difficult? It's difficult. It is a challenge for sure from that perspective. But that's where our sports performance are always trying to find different ways to analyze it. And that's where this summer a big part of our discussion is analytics, coaching staff, sports performance. What can we do differently moving forward? Because next year there's going to be even more back-to-backs next year. It's an Olympic year. The schedule is going to be more condensed because we have a 3-week break in February. So it's going to be even that much more of a challenge with the back-to-backs. So you're looking at everything, and I think Ron touched on it a little bit in the press conference. Our belief was, hey, what about our conditioning? Is it enough? But you look at the data, we were actually skating faster in game 2 than we were in game 1. So, okay, check that off. What else do we have to look at? Stuff. Was it, meeting times, whether it's, post-game after the first game of the Is it travel? Can we do something different from that perspective? So those are the things that we have to continue to look at to obviously solve that problem.
I want to get the schedule. I'll look around the room. We got great support staff in here. Ian from the Space Needle Lounge, that's where our Kraken Hockey Network desk is, wants to, when does the schedule come out? Do we know? Is it a couple weeks?
Usually at the end of June, start of July.
Okay. And I bring that up for this reason. So when we get to that schedule at the end of June and July, you mentioned briefly the Olympic year. So there's going to be, last year there was what, about a 12-day break?
Yep.
Roughly? Yep. This year it's 3 weeks for the Olympics. So last year for the Four Nations. This year's 3 weeks. But it's the same calendar, right, as we've had always before. So maybe more back-to-backs, all those types of things. So that is a big challenge, isn't it?
No, it's certainly a big challenge, and it goes to show why we have to continue to have depth within our organization. And that's what gets us so excited about having these young players. Maybe some of these young players don't make the 23-man roster right out of training camp, but we know we're going to utilize them. And especially with that many games, there's going to be a strong push for injuries and this and that we need the young kids coming up and giving our team a spark a little bit more maybe in October, November than in a normal year. It's also going to be important. We obviously want to have success here, but it's also we want our individual players to have success on the international level. And you look whether it's a Brandon Montour or Adam Larson or Matty Beniers, a lot of them are, all those players are over at the World Championships right now trying to sort of improve their status with the national team to hopefully be in recognition for the Olympics next year. So it's something that obviously they're proud Kraken players, but they're very proud of their own nation, and we want as many players in the Olympics as possible. So let's hopefully get off to a great start, not only for the Kraken, but also for some individuals for the Olympics.
Which is awesome. That's why the World Champ. I mean, Joey's playing well, right, for Team USA and goal and everything, and Maddie as well. Let me get to the free agents and where we're at with that, because there is draft capital, there's salary cap room, there's all those things that kind of come into play. You have the number 8 overall pick again this season. Back-to-back years for that. Seemed to work out pretty well last year with Mr. Catton. But when you get to an off season and you get to the free agency period on July 1st, before that the draft from the 27th to 28th of June, you've got some work you probably will have already got done, not just hiring a coach, but if nothing else, you've got your own free agents, especially the restricted guys, restricted free agents, Kaapo Kakko, Ty Cartier, Riker Evans, all jump off the page. I'm assuming those are all guys. In an ideal world, you want to get stuff like that. If you want these guys back, would you like to get it done before July 1st? Oh,
you certainly would, but there's also a process, especially sometimes you have to wait for the market to sort of figure out what some of these contracts are going to look like. But no, we've touched base with all 3 of those agents, just making sure that they know that we want the players back and we'd love to get the discussions going. Ricky Olchuk, our assistant general manager, is in charge of contract negotiations. We certainly talk about it as a group, find comparables, see what our plan will be, but obviously Ricky is the one having those discussions, and he does a great job with it. And we've clearly communicated to all 3 of them we want a part of them. And I think especially looking at a player like Kakko, he came over to the situation here. It was a success for the Kraken, but it's also success for him. And he showed some really good chemistry with Matty, and we're excited that hopefully he knows what to expect here in Seattle. He knows the familiarity with some of our players. It'll just allow him to have even more success next year.
You got Matty knocking on your door right now going, hey, can you sign my winger?
Exactly.
Can you get 84?
But it's great to see that chemistry, right? Them reading off each other. And what I would say with Kakko is I was shocked at how good of a playmaker he was. It's one of those things where
he plays heavy too, doesn't he?
He's so strong on pucks in the offensive zone type of thing from that perspective. And to me, he has a net front presence, but he also has the ability to pop out in the slot and utilize a shot. And once you get a player, it's always a little different from what you just sit up in the press box and evaluate him. And we knew he had the size, we knew he was strong on pucks, but then just some little plays he made through the neutral zone or finding that teammates in the offensive zone, that vision and playmaking skills was even higher than what we originally thought. So it's great to see that come out in his game.
A couple of unrestricted guys. Got John Hayden, who made a presence up here. Mikey Yacimon, who got in the trade. Josh Mahura, but a bunch of guys. They all kind of feel like they fit here. And you can't fit everybody on a roster. You can't get everybody under contract. But I'm assuming you're probably interested in some of those guys as well.
No, for sure. Look, I think you rattle off some of the names. You talk about players who brought emotion at the end of the year, who were excited about being in Seattle. And in exit meetings, they're talking to us about wanting to be back here, wanting to be part of the solution moving forward here. And that's exciting to hear, right? That means that our team service is taking care of them in the right way. It means that we're hopefully treating people with honesty and respect from that perspective. And that's exciting for us to hear from that bit. But what we're looking at right now, we want competition within our organization. We want competition at the National Hockey League level. It's my job to go out there, whether it's free agency or making trades, to sort of drop in sort of elite talent. But then whether it's Coachella Valley, whether it's Jeff Tambling development staff, our younger players coming up through the system to create competition there. So it's that balance of wanting to create competition, but also wanting to have spots for younger players. So it's always a unique dynamic, and those are the conversations we're having over the next couple of weeks.
Well, let me go back to the team building for a second and just what you're heading into. So the free agents, hopefully get some of those guys done. You don't want to get to that point. Maybe the market does bear it, right? Like the market does kind of bear what happens. But there's different ways to get a team to that next level.
Yep.
When Ron made the decision to make a coaching change, he talked about how this was a better team than the record showed. And I think we all see like the talent that's there. In fact, I kind of look at you can kind of pencil a lineup out right now, depending on what you do in free agency. But you want to get some high-end guys.
Yep.
Like that's the next step, right? The high-end, whoever that high-end player is. We saw it last year. You got Montour in the back end to go with Dunn and everybody else back there. You have a salary cap you have some money, but you have all that draft capital. So where do you envision that is the best, what's the most likely path to adding an impact player or two?
Well, look, it's you always talk about free agency. You get excited about free agency for sure, and we were very fired up last year to get both Stevenson and Montour. At the end of the day, that's not going to happen every year. You look at the list too this year for free agents. There's certainly some high-end players, but it's not a long list. And 31 other teams in the league certainly have more cap space this year with the cap going up and stuff too from that perspective.
Everybody kind of has more, right?
It will be a challenge, right?
Yeah.
But we at least have the cap space to make things happen if that's possible. And then you look at, it was tough. It was tough at the trade deadline moving a player like Yanni Gord or Bjorkstrand. These players did a great job for our organization. Certainly in the playoffs, had a lot of success for us. But it was also great that we were able to get that draft capital and 2 first-rounders back for them. And you look what Ron did. Our first trade deadline, we got a lot of draft capital at our first trade deadline, but it was a lot of second and third round picks. In this trade, we were able to get 2 first-round picks, and that carries a lot of weight moving forward. Whether you never know what trade's going to come, but we're going to at least be in the discussion with that draft pick option moving forward. So it's exciting for us, and the way we look at it is we'll continue to look through our discussions with our scouts on what players we want to sort of try to pinpoint, try to bring into our organization. And yes, acquisition is a key point, but it's also internal development. And what gets us excited is, okay, Shane Wright almost got to 20 goals this year, 19 goals, all right? And now him understanding what the league's all about, spending a whole year in the league, where is he going to go next year? Matty Beniers, and we just talk about where's Kako going to go? Like what can hit and a full year in Seattle playing with Matty Beniers, what can that look like moving forward? So that's what certainly gets us hope and gives us excitement.
And those draft picks, when the trade deadline comes and you move guys and you get draft picks in return, fans a lot of times and media, all of us, we're like, oh, that's kind of boring. Like a third, first round pick in 2026 or 2027, like I don't care about it. But that's not necessarily there for a pick, is what you're saying. That's there as capital to go out and get somebody.
No, 100%. And like that's what Ron talked about when we made those trades, and look at something that we'll certainly look for and stuff. And I think there's certainly a huge value on first-round picks. It's something that at least gets us in discussion some other trades. Over the years, we've tried to get involved with some of that, but not having that extra first-round pick was just something that we couldn't get involved with some of the trades. We'll at least be in that. Whether we can finalize a deal, that's always to be determined, but we'll at least certainly be a part of those discussions.
Before we wrap things up, behind the curtain for a second, you talked about how the amateur scouts are fighting for those guys, right?
Yep.
Like the guy in the Ontario League says, take my guy. The guy in the Quebec League takes my guy. The guy in the Swedish Junior League, take my guy. Those battles are going on. I love that. But you also on the pro side, all the scouts on the pro side, they all kind of have individual teams they kind of look at.
Yep.
How much of that is them saying, hey, Bots, I think what we got here is I think Team A, I think they want to move this guy. How much of that? It's not just scouting the players on the ice; it's scouting the organization, right?
It's scouting the organization. We expect them to be experts in their organization. They have to know not only players at the National Hockey League, but players at the American Hockey League. What are they, and giving me a better feel for what are they trying to accomplish. I certainly follow up with the general managers afterwards and talk about different deals that could be available, what they're trying to accomplish. But to get that background information from our scouts just prepares me for those discussions a lot more.
All right, we'll wrap it up with this. What are you looking most forward to this season?
Looking for this season, obviously getting a new head coach in here, and then just seeing our reaction, seeing our response, right? I think you saw after year 1, we weren't exactly happy where we were. We had a great response in year 2. And, You talk about whether it's Yanni Newman playing his, scoring his first goal in CPA, or hey, Matty Benier's coming up at the end of that first year and really giving our team spark, or the confidence that Shane Wright played with sometimes in the second half. Like, those are proud moments for our organization. Those are proud moments seeing those players develop and becoming the players that, hey, our amateur scouts projected to them at age 18. So what I'm excited is just what is the response of our group next year and the development of these young kids taking that next step.
All right, finally, thanks everybody for joining us today. Do you have any final words for our season ticket members?
No, certainly just really appreciate all your support out there, and it's something that's getting around the league right now. In our discussions with a lot of coaching candidates, they just talk about the atmosphere, the energy that's in our building, and whether it's the middle of October or the end of April, we really appreciate your support.
I would say the same thing. I feel that every day on the radio. Great, hot, passionate hockey fan base. We saw it this year with the Kraken Hockey Network, and the number of people tuning in to watch home and away games. But the people watching right now and listening, the season ticket members, the ones that are in the building every night, 41 nights a year, you're the ones, you're the backbone, you're the lifeblood of this organization. So thank you from all of us. We appreciate you guys joining us. And next up, we'll do one of these with a coach. When is that going to be again?
Soon. We'll get it.
Soon. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Have a great day.
Go Kraken.